Okay.
Do you have an idea of how many people we're expecting from registrations?
I believe it was like 22, I think, or around 20.
Okay, I'm just looking at the waiting room population, and maybe we'll start when we get close to that number.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Not sure what the balance of promptness versus knowing people are coming is, but
So would you like me to admit people or just let me know when you
I think it's fine.
see the word?
Well, yeah, whenever you like. Whenever.
I will do that. Thanks, everybody.
So Soren, I'll give it about 1 more minute and then I'll get started if that's okay.
Yep, that sounds great.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jennifer Stewart, and I am a policy analyst with NCSL, and we are so thankful to have you all here today. I am going to introduce our moderator for today. It's Soren Jacobson, and he is a senior IT specialist for the Idaho Legislative Services Office. He has been with Legislative Services for 19 years, and after 2 illustrious years as the NALIT Vice Chair, thanks COVID, he currently serves as a NALIT chair. And so I am going to launch a poll here in a second, but just a quick housekeeping item. We are recording this Zoom call just for our NCSL internal files and just note taking in the future and possible follow-up. So I just wanted to put that out there. So I will deploy this, this poll, and then I will hand it over to Soren. Now, 1 second. All right, I'll give it about 20 more seconds or so. Okay, so it looks like recruitment was the biggest challenge, and then all of the above, and then changing attitudes of leadership towards work from home, and then also retention. So thank you, everybody. All right, Sharon, or Soren, take it away.
Soren, Sharon, either way. It's
Sorry.
Give me 1 second to share a screen here. All right, good afternoon or morning if you're in Alaska or Hawaii, I guess. I'd like to start off with a quick tip of the hat, specifically to Kay Warnock for her efforts in getting this webinar off the ground, and then to Jennifer Stewart for pinch hitting late in the game so effectively, getting us across the finish line. Much appreciated. The support from NCSL staff in these events is always great, and with this webinar, it's been no exception. A little bit more housekeeping. I'm really proud of myself for saying housekeeping instead of house cleaning, which I always do at that moment. We're going to be holding off questions until the end. So after all of the panelists have presented, please use the raise hand feature within Zoom if you'd like to ask a question. You can also send one via chat as we go. I lean towards having you raise your hand and ask the question, but we can do it either way. We'll be doing a few polls throughout. Obviously, we've just done one of them. Your participation is appreciated. Also, if you haven't had the pleasure of doing one of these Zoom webinars before, from a presenter's perspective, it's a little different. You get no feedback from the audience at all as you go. So if one of the panelists says something that really resonates with you or just entertains you, don't be bashful about using the thumbs up or the clapping things within Zoom. It's always good, at least when I'm presenting anything, it's always nice to get a little bit of feedback. So feel free to use those judiciously. And then finally, one more thing. One of the things I'll talk about briefly later on, there's a growing trend towards marketing rather than simply posting your job opportunities, really kind of focusing on the marketing side of that. At this point, I'd like to take a minute just personally to say, sorry, my screen sharing thing popped up and I thought I lost you. If you're looking for any help in those marketing efforts, you shouldn't need to look any further than my PowerPoint deck to know that I am not the guy and you should not reach out to me. I'm about as bare bones as it gets on that stuff. But let's get going here. So the Great Resignation, the Big Quit, the Great Reshuffle, these are more than trending hashtags. These are actual employment realities for many public and private sector companies. These people are dealing with dramatic loss of staff or having to significantly restructure their work environment to retain workers. If you take a look at these two word clouds here, they're both based on the word resignation. The one on the left is from a couple of years ago, and you'll see words like failure, rejection, stress, dejected, those type of words really prevalent in there. The one on the right is a more contemporary one, and it includes words like agency, dream, success, stability, a lot of positive feelings. Indicators have shown that over the last, over 40% of people are considering leaving their employer in 2021. We've seen other surveys that have that number as high as 65%. Another study indicated that over half of Gen Z employees are planning to seek new jobs within a year. Tolerance for jobs people don't like is at an all-time low, and the willingness to leave a job to try to improve one's quality of life is an increasing trend. Necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention. And the sea change with regard to work environments, brought on largely by COVID-19, has ushered sort of a new era. Opportunities to work from home, flex schedules, more diverse and expansive compensation packages have all empowered employees, to seek better, more fulfilling employment. Getting a little more granular and focused on our specific audience, preliminary results from NCSL's 2021 survey of legislative information technology priorities, that's a mouthful, demonstrated many of these same concerns within our group. Nearly half of the respondents have stated that recruiting or retention of IT staff has become more difficult. To illustrate one specific example of this, while 6% of IT staff have been allowed to work from home in the past, 52% anticipate doing so in the future. And nearly 70% of respondents feel that doing so will make a difference in their ability to hire or retain staff going forward. So these are major factors. So while the Soren plan, TM, doesn't seem to be working, I guess the question is, what is going to work? How can we gain some traction here? And just as a quick aside, I'm not sure why the Soren plan isn't working. I mean, we all subscribe to cable TV and magazines and dog food with introductory offers. So I don't know why wages would work, but apparently it's not going to work. But anyway, what does work? A quick search of the internet kind of resulted in learning that we should beef up our compensation package. We should create employee value propositions. We should begin not just posting, but actively marketing our job activities. I read article after article that said you should create a video that demonstrates what a wonderful place your workplace is. We're literally at the infomercial stage of hiring. So the question is, what do our colleagues say? What has and hasn't worked in state legislatures across the country? And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're going to hear from a panel of 4 terrific speakers. They represent a diverse cross-section of the country, literally from coast to coast, as well as both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. Jim, Carlin, Nate, and Amber are going to take you through their processes, their stories, their successes. We're going to start with Jim. Jim Bell is the Director of Technology Services for the New York State Senate. His team supports 63 senators and 1,200 staff in Albany and 70 locations statewide. So if everyone will, I guess very silently and in a way he won't be able to see, please welcome Jim. I'll turn it over to him.
Thanks, Soren. Appreciate that. I think you did a great job framing today's challenge with staff recruitment and retention. I'm going to talk a little bit about the recruiting side, but really recruiting and retention are so intertwined. Good recruiting leads to good retention. So like you said, we see the same thing. Surveys from the Bureau of Labor Statistics today, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, Prudential. August had the highest rate of people leaving jobs ever. Definitely worth noting, women were the leading demographic to quit. 46% are considering or actively looking for new jobs. And 88% of organization leaders said they're looking at high turnover this year. I think we all know why. The IT field itself, demand is outstripping supply. Competition is really high for good candidates, especially for special skills. Also, the pandemic meant the last 18 months gave us new ways of working, and that's really changed employees' expectations about what they want out of jobs. I can definitely sympathize with this. Just last week, my network security engineer gave me that dreaded Friday afternoon visit and said he's leaving for a new position with a company in California that is offering 50% more pay and lets him stay fully remote. So we were like, bon voyage, good luck. That's tough. But I think there's a silver lining in that. Openings are a chance for good recruiting to improve your team. So it's really important, I think, especially when people leave, look at why they left and address problems in your retention plan and your recruiting practices so that you can improve for the future. And, recruiting really 3 simple tasks: find qualified candidates, pick the best matches out there for your needs, and get those people to successfully start an organization. Starting with the kind of finding people issue. Here in the Senate, our experience has been that finding people through the traditional avenues has been, the kind of ad and Indeed has been less and less successful. And national surveys kind of follow that same pattern. 58% of employers say that they're not getting enough applicants. 71% say their applicants aren't showing up with the right skills to be hired. From our end, we have been. So I've got no magic bullet here. I saw that was a high issue for everyone, but we really didn't have a magic bullet. We started to lean more on non-traditional sources of candidates. So we've, for many years, had an internship program that's been very successful for us in building a pipeline of new candidates. And we've been happy to hire people out of that process. I can say the pandemic really stomped on that. We weren't really prepared for how we would mentor people fully remote, and ended up shutting down for a year. But we're bringing that back because we really see the value of that, building that connection between colleges and universities locally to bring people in. Code camps, reskilling programs in your community can be a great source of new, but very highly motivated people. Veterans groups, often an untapped talent source in your area. And I think something that Soren brought up, I think a lot of organizations are looking at social media and the outreach they do there, whether it's YouTube videos or connecting on LinkedIn or starting a podcast or whatever it might be to raise their visibility in their community and participate with other organizations and other social media people so that they've got attention and interest out there for people that are in the IT field. We haven't done this yet, but I think some other people may talk about this today. One other path is contract to hire, where people, contract and then move into a hiring, stay on in a permanent role later. I think that's really nice. You can get focused on exactly what you're looking for, faster acquisition, but probably has some real costs. I think the Senate's been a little reluctant to make that big jump, but we may for some special purposes. Another thing that's really important for us has been diversity. So we really feel that it's important to attract people that aren't just like you in the organization. It benefits all the people that we serve. That means new perspectives and better solutions for the people we're serving. One way we get there is to make sure that we have a diverse group of people involved in the recruiting process. So we bring people across our team into all aspects of the recruiting process. And we've encouraged employee referrals. And we've reached out and asked our employees to be advocates at the colleges they came from the communities they're in the groups they're involved in clubs that promotes and support diversity. We found by doing this and engaging them, we're bringing in and connecting with people that we might not otherwise professionally. And it brings a whole nother set of people, and that helps our goals and helps what we're trying to accomplish. I think another thing in recruiting, however you're going to promote it, is are you actively addressing what prospective candidates are looking for? So we hear that what they're looking for from all the surveys is they're looking for schedule flexibility, number one, expanded benefits, good compensation, and career development. So that's caused us to go back and look closely at what our compensation levels are. And I think everyone would be smart to do that. And I apologize, I noticed there's a line slowly creeping across my face through this video, which comes from the blinds that is shut. I'm like, aha, 3 o'clock in the fall is not the time to be sitting exactly here. So that's why I'm weirdly scooching over. Anyways, compensation is I think really important. It's important for us to be competitive with both, as much as we can, with the private sector and with other government agencies, which are also competing. From our standpoint, we find it's really tough now that people are remote, that they can compete very effectively with the private sector. But I don't think that's going to happen forever. I think the San Francisco salaries for jobs in upstate New York are not going to last. Private sector companies are going to start indexing salaries based on where people, what the cost of living in the communities are from, which I think will actually help us again. But right now it's kind of tough, but be aware of that. Benefits, government always had the best. States are getting more stingy. Important to look at your benefits and promote all the benefits you have and what special things you have that you can offer. And then the big one for us, I think we do have a lot of control over, is opportunities to learn and grow. So advancement can be hard if your IT operation is small or really flat, but we have all the control over projects, technologies, the training that we provide our employees. And this is a place where we can level up our employees and make it attractive for people to join. Be like, look at this technology we're using, look at these training opportunities that are available, and have people speak on that. We can control that piece. So I think that's important to promote. The biggest issue today, without a doubt, is flexible work locations, hybrid and remote work. Soren already talked about that. And we see that in all the survey responses. Today is more flexible post-pandemic. The genie's not going back in the bottle. Private sector loves that. I think they're really happy to get rid of expensive buildings and make people work out of their houses. The NASCIO survey for 2021, looking at state CIOs, said expanded remote work options is the number 2 thing on their list of goals. So you're competing both with the private sector and with state governments on trying to be flexible. And I'd also say in developing a program for flexibility, for how people can work, bear in mind that not everybody wants to work remotely. Some surveys I've seen have been split where some people want to be in all the time. Some people want to be away all the time. Some people want a mix of that. People are in different places in their lives. My son just got a job in the IT field, and he's super bummed to be working from home. He wants to go in the office and meet people and socialize. So you got to meet people where they are. So I know remote raises a whole bunch of issues, and we're going to talk a lot. I think different people speak today about how they've dealt with that. Security, management, how do you handle performance, long-term engagement, fairness in the office between people that are remote and not remote, diversity. Some people can need flexibility, some people can't, and you're forcing your kind of like what group you're going to be working with based on how flexible you are. And even things like long-term well-being, everything from mental health to ergonomics. What's the impact of sitting in that terrible kitchen chair for years and years and years? But I think organizations that figure out a flexible plan that works with their legislature, they're going to better be able to recruit and retain people going forward. So you've promoted people, or you've promoted your jobs, you've attracted people. How do you pick the best people? One of the things that we've done in the Senate is invest time and effort. And now look, I can go on the other side of the line. There we go. One of the things we've done is invest time and people into team interviews. So we get all of our staff involved in any kind of selection process. We developed a formal, repeatable process. So we were being fair to candidates and not having different approaches based on who showed up that day. We made sure that we had a diverse group of people participating. So we got different perspectives because we value diversity. And we also found that was super valuable for the employees that were participating because they had better understood our policies and organizational goals when they were trying to explain them to a recruit in an interview. They really felt part of that process and felt really engaged and committed to new hires and making them successful. We found that it immediately built connections between staff that we had and the staff that we ended up hiring. So can't say how valuable that's been for us. We also do testing formally. So we both do formal tests for programmers developed by our own team and do ask, for example, support staff to come and do presentations to a group of support people. When we found that those kind of things help see if people can really do what they say they can do. Finally, and I'm going to cut, appreciate your time. I want to talk a little bit about the last part, onboarding. I know Carlin's going to talk a lot about this, so I don't want to steal all his stuff, but for us, once you hire an employee, having them start successfully really is critical to that first experience they have in onboarding. So especially it's complicated in a remote or hybrid environment where people are separate. One of the strategies for that is to make sure that you have certain days where everybody's together. I think Amber's going to talk about a little bit about that at some point. For us, also super important was to document expectations really clearly, provide knowledge bases, give them checklists for what they're going to be doing on a daily basis, and have regular check-ins with supervisors and managers so they make sure they're on the right path. One thing we've implemented during since the pandemic is really building buddy systems where they'd always have not only their supervisor, but partner employees who they can go to in case they have a question or problem. Again, it's a learning experience and it's a mentoring opportunity for people. And the last thing I'd say is communicate times 50. No matter how much you communicate, you're not doing it enough because only some people hear you every time. So repeating it 5 times, boring for me, super important for employees because they don't hear it 5 times. Finally, one thing that we do with onboarding is always think about departures. We start the process saying, we need to plan for what happens if people leave. So that means cross-training, building knowledge bases, reducing our reliance on institutional knowledge, and doing things like automating processes. So we're relying on systems more than people for a lot of things. And that way, as we have changes, departures aren't so painful and new people can get up and running faster. So there's my little spiel across the whole gamut of recruiting. And now I think I'm going to turn it over to Carlin Lindsay.
So thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. Carlin is up next. Carlin Lindsay has worked with the Office of Legislative Counsel since 2017 as part of the Committee Management Customs Relation Team. Stepped into the management in 2020 during the pandemic and formalized their video conferencing service. Prior to his service, I'm changing pronouns as I go. Sorry, I should have done this editing ahead of time. Prior to his career in civil service, he worked as a family therapy practitioner in the nonprofit sector. So please welcome Carlin.
Hi, so I don't mean to interrupt. Can we just launch a quick poll about where IT staff is working today?
Absolutely.
Sounds good to
I
me.
apologize, Carlin, and sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we were getting this up so everybody can, so we can just kind of see. So I'm going to launch it right now.
That's terrific. I
Awesome,
picked a
thank
spot
you.
for it and then didn't do it.
Oh, it's all good. I'm sorry to interrupt. So we'll get a little bit more time, a couple seconds. And so it looks like we have a tie. So the question is, where is IT staff working today? The tie is between everybody on site or everyone on site all the time and hybrid with most on site and a little remote. And then in, I guess, second place would be hybrid with limited people on site and mostly remote. And the last place is mostly remote. So thanks, everyone. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, thank you for that break, Jennifer. Help me to collect my thoughts. Thank you for the introductions, Soren, and special thanks to NALIT for providing this coordinating this event and giving me the opportunity to discuss recruiting during this past year. Greetings from Sacramento, California. I'd like to continue the discussion started by Jim Bell regarding recruitment, but with a little bit more of a narrow focus towards some role-specific recruiting we did to address the challenges brought on by COVID-19. I'll give a little bit of background first, so please bear with me. March 2020, stay-at-home order was started in California. Entire workforce started working from home. At this time, we were 5 months away from the end of the 2-year session. We needed to come up with a solution to help our customers successfully complete their legislative work. Failure was not an option. Enter video conferencing. We support the legislature in the early stages of this project by gathering their requirements and testing various video conferencing applications. Eventually, each house selected a application which best suited their needs. We learned Zoom for the Senate and WebEx for the Assembly to transition to remote hearings and ensure constituent access to the legislative process. Remote connection options for panelists, for members when approved, and a dedicated AT&T phone line for public comment. Eventually, remote testimony stations were added to provide more options for the public. We were expected to manage all aspects of the video conferencing hearing process. We needed to recruit schedulers for event creation in the specific video conferencing application, and it was a unique event for each hearing. These schedulers were required to send invites to committee staff and major stakeholders. So we needed detail-oriented folks to take care of this critical task. Each application needs its own dedicated scheduler. This is a critical role in this process because things change quickly for the legislature and schedulers need to adjust at a moment's notice. We needed moderators to start the event, complete all pre-hearing testing, complete panelist management tasks, and to run the application until the hearing adjourns. Panelist management includes mic checks, camera checks, and PowerPoint support. So we needed folks that are comfortable with customer service, working with folks sometimes 5 minutes before the hearing started, getting those last minute changes like, here's my PowerPoint, can you share this for me? So we needed folks that are comfortable under pressure and had great customer service skills. Our moderator teams work in two so we can ensure all break and lunch coverage. We needed to do internal recruiting. This was a critical focus early on. We needed to have the right people to support our legislative customers during a turning point for the California legislature. The idea of a remote hearing process had been discussed for years, and now we needed to make it work during a pandemic with 5 months left in the 2-year session. We needed customer service experts and project managers to ensure we could manage the heightened intensity of the times. To meet customer demands, we put together a team of 24 from multiple departments in the Legislative Data Center. I like to call them the Dream Team because these were the best and brightest from several divisions that joined this fledgling group. Time was of the essence, so we trained quickly and learned fast out of necessity. There were growing pains. One early moderator task was to keep time during the hearings for panelists and public comment. During one hearing, I was keeping time by holding up one finger as a minute passed. Halfway through the hearing, committee staff reached out to me and asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm keeping time for the hearing so the chair knows how long the panelists are going on. She kindly let me know that my hand gestures were no longer needed for that hearing. So we were all in a learning process. We had to learn how to be successful in this service under intense conditions. Despite the challenges of 2020, the team was able to support the legislative process and successfully end the 2-year session. Mission complete. Well, this success ushered in a new era for my committee management customer relations group. We now owned the video conferencing service. It was no longer a stopgap measure just to end the session. It was now a part of our business process. This is where the challenge comes in. That team of 24, the dream team, dwindled down to 9, including myself. But this was to be expected. The other divisions needed their staff back to support legislative applications, projects, and their customer support activities. It was clear as day that we needed to grow the video conferencing service because 9 people could not meet customer expectations. We had data on what video conferencing looked like at the end of a 2-year session, but no information as to what it would look like, what we would be needed to cover at the start. I needed empirical evidence to justify hiring. Utilizing legislative applications and researching past sessions, I was staggered at how many hearings were going to be going on right at the start of session. Quick example, 50 budget hearings in 4 weeks, just in one house. There were policy hearings at that same time, but just 50 specifically for budget. With this critical information, I had the data I needed to clearly document and justify the need for growth to meet customer demand. I put together a package and with the support of management, was able to start the hiring process. Apologies for the background and for rambling a bit, NALIT, but this is where I get a little more focused on our recruiting process. The challenge, role-specific hiring. We were looking for folks for video conferencing and for the other work that we do in our group. We were fortunate enough to be able to bring on 5 new hires since November of 2020. the emphasis on video conferencing and our other tasks. And one challenge was how to onboard during a pandemic. So that's something that, you know, we've learned on the fly. We followed our typical hiring process, keeping the posting up for 2 weeks. And once we got all of our application packets, all the fun began of sorting through and filtering through to get those right people. Screening application packets provided an early opportunity to narrow down to ideal candidates. Understanding the moderator role helped us to look for specific skills and traits that would help determine the best candidates for interviews. Of course, customer service skills. Can you talk to a human respectfully and professionally during a tense time? Can you be calm when they're not? This is a given. Zoom or WebEx experience. Do you know what these things are? Have you used them before? Experience with these tools can help to prepare folks for what was to come. Now, there are numerous other factors that go into the screening process to determine who was ready for an interview, but these are just a few that stuck out related to this role. We did team interviews per Jim. I mean, we didn't consult with Jim Bell before we did team interviews, but it was something that we took on because it was important to have multiple individuals involved in this process because you're growing your team, so you want the team to be engaged and involved. Interviews, of course, are necessary to get that right person. And they help you to narrow down, but interviews can, of course, interview questions qualify or disqualify a potential employee. Here are some of the questions that we use specifically related to this role and these times. We are essential workers and are required to work in the Capitol. What does being an essential worker mean to you? Early check-in to gauge a person's overall view regarding the situation we're all experiencing. There are differing viewpoints and on everything, you know, in the news cycle, and the response can kind of clarify what you're to expect. If you are selected for this position, you may be in a hurry up and wait scenario, busy preparing for the hearing, and then just sitting in the hearing room, ensuring the system runs as expected. Are you comfortable, considering your education and experience, being in a role where your full technical expertise will not be truly put to the test in that first year? We had all ranges of applicants come in. Would someone with a doctorate level be comfortable in a hearing for 8 hours, just ensuring the system ran as expected? Another question. We are essential workers. If selected for this position, one of your tasks will be to run video conferencing applications to support company hearings in the Capitol. Do you have any concerns about being in the Capitol wearing a mask for extended periods of time? This is a qualify or disqualify question, position. Can I expect this potential employee to do what is necessary to support our customers during this critical time? I'm a little bit over time, but I'll wrap up quickly. Interview attire was something we paid attention to during these Zoom interviews. Video conferencing is all on camera. And although IT folks can be a little casual, it was just another one of those things that you paid a little bit more attention to. And then once we had the right people, preparing them for the hybrid workflow. For video conferencing hearings, you're on site at the data center and then you're on site in the Capitol. But when there aren't hearings, you're back at home. So preparing them for the adjustment that was to come. Thank you all for the time. This is just a little bit about our experience here in California. Thank you again, NALIT, for this opportunity, and I'm available for any questions at the appropriate time.
Thanks, Carlin. Appreciate it. Next up will be Nate Rohan. Nate is the Deputy Director of Wisconsin's Nonpartisan Legislative Technology Services Bureau, LTSB, Nate has been with LTSB for 13 years and currently serves as the Vice Chair of NALIT. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you, Soren. All right, I'm going to share my screen, everybody. Just give me one moment. I have a slide deck for you today. I'll just get a quick nod from someone if they can see my screen, and if so, then I'll get right into it. Great, thank you. I'm here to talk today about retention. We've employed some of these strategies here in Wisconsin, and I'm kind of hoping that maybe you'll hear some of the strategies we've done and consider them for use in your state. So a good place to start, of course, always is identifying the problem itself. There we go. So retention, we've heard a little bit about this already, of course, but there's a few key things I think that factor into retention concerns for many organizations right now. So the proliferation of work remote positions, that is obviously the very obvious new dynamic. Now we compete nationally for candidates. Some legislatures are not allowed to offer work remote as an option. Some are, but not all. And this ability to work remote has a trickle-down effect into the talent pool that we all hire from. And what I mean by that is basically the geographic advantage that we once held, where your employees are generally always in your talent pool, and your employees, your potential employees, were always nearby your state capital, presumably, within some area. But now that's changed. Now they're able to take jobs wherever, really. Another thing, of course, this is nothing new, but generally speaking, most state salaries can't compete with the private sector. This is certainly the case now with, as Jim kind of mentioned earlier, there's salaries that aren't indexed to current locations. And so as a result, there's a salary that would, be a going rate for someone maybe on the West Coast that is in Kansas. So that's a difficult thing to compete with. Working remotely can change the work culture. What I mean by that is it changes the advantages you get, I guess, of having a work culture with you front and center. Working remotely means you are not bumping into people in the hallway and having those impromptu conversations. You're not having those water cooler conversations, and you're also a little inhibited from occasionally calling someone when you might be less inhibited to just walk up and talk to someone. So the work culture that kind of organically and naturally occurs is more deliberate, and so it's changed. And then the final thing, I think it's no secret, of course, but the current political environment is hypercharged. What's interesting is I looked at, and NCSL was publishing articles back in 2014 about how there's challenges to remaining nonpartisan in an increasingly partisan world, and that was 2014. So the world has changed a lot in 7 years, and I think that's a key thing. I think you see employees who can contend with that struggle, especially having worked, I'm talking about retention, having worked there and been very close now to the politics. Sometimes you don't see that necessarily with recruitment, because they're not necessarily plugged into state politics that much. So what are the things we can do? If we can't control some of these things, what can we control? Well, there's a few categories of things that I've kind of compiled. So work-life balance, people talk about this all the time, but what is that? Well, I think from a leadership perspective, you just decide as an organization, we are going to support and foster a flexible, healthy work-life balance for our employees. So some of that flexibility takes the form of allowing people to have appointments in the middle of the day, and maybe they have some travel time to do that, or maybe it's telehealth or something like that, or just basically allowing them to either, of course, take time off that they've earned, but also even just having adjustable work schedules. And in addition to adjustable work schedules, we are finding employees who prefer asynchronous work schedules. They don't necessarily want or prefer, I shouldn't say want, they just don't prefer maybe an 8 to 5 kind of thing. They may prefer to start a decent amount later. Maybe it's late morning. or maybe it's very early in the morning and be done early in the day. Or sometimes it changes on a daily basis. And so the question is, as an organization, can you provide that flexibility to your employees to have those asynchronous work schedules? And then a last thing on work-life balance, and it kind of ties into other areas, which is to identify where those knowledge bottlenecks are, and so that a person feels compelled to come into work, and try to reduce those, try to continue to push cross-training and share that knowledge, centralize it in your knowledge management system, whatever. Second strategy we use is we try to minimize bureaucracy. This is the way that our bureau is laid out. We have a relatively flat structure. This isn't, it's not to say everybody should do the same thing, but just as a comparison point, we have generally about 3 levels of, work. We have team members, there is team managers, and then there are our directors, or director, deputy directors. So it's a very, very flat organization. And so sometimes when we're talking to potential employees or even current employees, we stress that there's a lot of opportunity for expanding your responsibility outward versus climbing that corporate ladder, so to speak. That flat structure has benefits in that we can, we can have easily accessible conversations with our leadership group. And in addition to that, another strategy we use is to have brief monthly one-on-ones. So we do 30 minutes tops, maybe even less if there's not a lot of things to cover. But basically every team manager and every team member will have a monthly one-on-one for about 30 minutes. And that's an opportunity to give feedback to the employee and even potentially to the manager, to go through some work updates, project updates, et cetera, and just a chance to check in a confidential space. And finally, that kind of ties into the biennial performance reviews. We don't do those every year like a lot of organizations do. We do them every 2 years. That is probably, or not probably, that is because it aligns with when the legislature's session, of course, occurs. So and a key thing about our performance reviews is we don't necessarily tie them to when we make salary adjustments. Because of those monthly one-on-ones, we have hopefully a better in-tune understanding of where an employee is and where their compensation is, and we can make adjustments more ad hoc versus waiting for a more structured profession or sort of strict performance review as an opportunity to be that catalyst. We make accommodations to our employees. So one of them is we just afford them the flexibility to choose where they want to work. Essentially, at the moment, there are some exceptions to this. Of course, we have our technical support team, our leadership group, and then when we receive items or asset management, et cetera, we require those people to be in the office. But other than that, we've afforded our staff the ability to work where it makes most sense to them. And not all of them work remote as a result of that. Many of them are here in the office. The last thing I'll mention on this slide is that we also have been looking into some workspace improvements. Some of them we've already done for a long period of time. And that includes Slack. We utilize Slack a lot. We have for actually a number of years now. And it allows us to retain some of that that institution or that organizational culture in a way that is certainly different than when you're in person, but ultimately allows these connections to be formed in sort of a passive way that you don't have, that is different than email or an actual phone call or video conference. You can just kind of have these passive conversations. Sometimes they're even not work related, and that's, you do need that, I think. And then the other thing we've been doing is, just generally looking at quality of life improvements. Can we change our workspace? Can we do simple things? And one of the things that we're in the process of doing right now is moving or getting bigger and better monitors. It sounds kind of simple and maybe straightforward, but honestly, something so simple and straightforward and one-time cost, I think affords each employee, more productivity, a sense of value, that they are valued and they are provided with high quality tools. So simple, small things like that, I think we have seen a lot of appreciation. So my second slide in this area talks about a thing that we just finished, which is to make or establish a tangible representation of our work culture. And that's essentially us talking about our organizational values. So one of the things that LTSB has is a good work culture. We like working here. The people that are here generally really like working here. And we've never written down why that is. And so we took a stab at trying to come up with why that is. We tried to codify those organizational values. What are the things that play a part into how we do the things that we do? What are the guiding principles or the organizational values, really? And so you can see on this page that we've got 5 organizational values that we have established. For people who work at LTSB, they can and hopefully do look at this list and understand, okay, yep, this aligns with my experience of working at our bureau. And this is a value both in that it reminds our staff of the things that matter to us, but also we can use it as a recruitment angle and say, okay, potential employee, or even an onboarding step where, okay, new employee, if you want to learn how we operate at LTSB, look at these core values, look at these organizational values, and base your decision making and your approach to your work off of these things. The final thing that we use as a strategy is something that's maybe not common to every legislature, but is we have unclassified positions in the legislature. I imagine most legislatures do. I know the executive branch in Wisconsin has classified, but ours are unclassified. So what that allows us to do is to decide how our positions are structured. We can change the titles of those positions. We can change the responsibilities of those positions when we need to and when we want to. So recognizing that basically most of your newer workforce entries or entrants, I should say, have, there's studies that kind of talk about the interest to have more variety in the work responsibility that they have. This is a key thing for us, is to try to identify areas where people are not siloed as much as they any more than they should be, I suppose. We try to, this kind of goes back to that first slide of talking about how to give that good work-life balance. We try to have those knowledge bottlenecks be broken, and we try to encourage cross-training. And so we have this concept of having areas of specialty for engineers and technicians across our bureau. We support cross-training and DevOps sessions. That's obviously a kind of an overused term, but honestly, just even something as simple as having people who don't normally work together in their direct responsibilities sit in a room or share a Slack channel and kind of work together throughout their day and talk about some of the challenges they're going through on a daily basis results in a lot of value for both the employees and ultimately the organization, that they can understand what other groups are, other workers really inside your own organization are doing, make things more efficient as a thing that's come out of some of our DevOps sessions. And last, I talked about Slack for a second. Slack has a new feature now called huddles, where you can, inside a Slack channel, you could have 30 people in a Slack channel, and there may be a group of 3 or 4 or 5 that want to talk at once, and not everybody wants to, but maybe people wouldn't mind jumping in if they knew it was happening. I don't know if anybody's explored that, but we've started to, and it's pretty neat how it works. It allows you to basically, you get a little sort of indicator that there is a huddle occurring, and you can choose to join or not this huddle, and you can see who's in the huddle and who's talking and that kind of thing. So it's basically trying to replicate what you would find, of course, in an office when you're just walking through and you see a bunch of people huddled together. So just in summary, we basically, with retention, we're trying to keep our employees with the actions that are within our control. So that's providing and really supporting that work-life balance from a leadership perspective, I think is critical. We try to minimize the bureaucracy. I talked kind of about our flat structure, the work location accommodations, maybe it's monitors, maybe it's nice new keyboards, maybe it's just a refresh of common everyday things that are on people's desks. I think sometimes just having nice new things goes a long way. And with the minimal cost that it seems like a no-brainer. We try to foster a positive work culture. Establishing the organizational values really goes a long way with that respect. We We try to improve the workspace appeal with useful services. That's kind of our Slack example. And then I just was talking about, of course, our position responsibility variety. I don't know if that's a phrase that people use, but essentially like introducing a lot of variety in what people do, allowing them to share responsibilities and share cross-training goes a long way. And then, of course, this kind of harkens back to where I started, where since we are such a flat organization, when we have people that join our bureau and they're interested in that next challenge, we talk about how you can expand outward, you can expand your responsibilities, grow in your career, but the growth is becoming wider and getting more responsibilities on your plate, and a less of a focus, although it's not possible, although it is possible, I should say, of upward mobility. So that's all I had for mine, and I'll stop sharing now, I think. Hang on one second, folks. There we go. All right. Back to you, Soren.
Terrific. Thanks, Nate. That was great. And much better PowerPoint presentation than mine visually. All right, so Amber Snyder is our last panelist. Amber joined the Texas Legislative Council in 1994 and has worked in numerous roles over the last 27 years. Amber currently leads a team of 7 desktop support office consultants tasked with providing first and second level support to all 181 members of the Texas legislature and their staff. For much of Amber's career, her main responsibility was to provide desktop support to the Office of the Speaker, an office which she still maintains involvement and oversight. Amber has enjoyed working with application development teams throughout her career, performing quality assurance for hardware and software, and writing end user documentation. Amber, welcome. You're muted though.
Thanks. Sorry, I know this has been long, so I'm just gonna go through my slideshow quite quickly. Can everyone see that? Give me a wave. Okay, great. I hope you can see all of it. So let me get going here. So we have been quite lucky here in Texas. We've not lost a lot of people. We have lost some we found in our infrastructure groups. And those are the groups that mainly will remain working from home. So with that being said, we've had to look at what our hiring options are. So I just want to go through this with y'all. We have found that using a recruiting agency is very, very helpful. And with a recruiting agency, they can actually go through the applications for us. Like I think it was Jim was saying, you get a ton of applications. They go through the applications for us. We can tell them what we need as far as if it's a developer, what language they need, or, and I'm not a developer, but, what they need to be up to date on, what we're using, .NET, whatever. And then what we do is we have an option where we hire them for 6 months. And then at the end of that 6 months, they can either go back to their recruiting agency, or we offer them a position here at council. And what is really nice about this is if the person isn't a fit, if the person doesn't fit in with the team, that we still get the work out of them, but we can move on. But if they're great and they've learned the culture of the team and the agency, we've really been able to find someone great. And we have found quite a few people using a recruiting agency. And I looked up ours. I don't know if I should advertise for them, but there are recruiting agencies for this type of thing throughout all the states. And I would just say that that is a good option for y'all. And from what I understand from our leadership, we actually can set the price point. So if they stay on, they're not taking a bump to stay with us. They're staying at the same price point, or maybe even going up some. And then online multiple sites. I heard Jim talk about, you all talked about putting your applications out there, and you also talked about diversity. We have Work in Texas, which is the place where we all put our our job sites, but there's one called Handshake, and it's a college to career network. And what that does is it links, we use that quite often here at Ledge Council, and it actually goes out and it sends our application out to all the universities within the state of Texas. And so Handshake is something I would recommend any of you looking into. Because if you have someone who is an engineer, or I shouldn't say engineer, but if someone is doing programming or becoming a developer, for us, like up at Texas, in Lubbock, but their family lives here in Austin, that may be a real appealing job to them, because when they're graduating, they're going to be able to come home and live in Austin and work. So Handshake is a really good thing. Another thing I want to remind y'all is to be sure that you look at things as far as diversity. Look at your Black. We have, where is ours? Hold on. I've got it. We also do the Greater Austin Black Chamber. We do the Hispanic Austin Chamber. Those are great tools and great places for us to go. There's quite a few, but we do post our applications out a lot of places. And so that's really helpful. And then of course we have social media. We at Ledge Council, the council has a Facebook, we also have a Twitter, and we also have a LinkedIn. And we put those out. We put the applications out there. I think one of the most important things we do is we put our mission statement. This is just the beginning of our mission statement, but we add our mission statement in there. And that lets them know that we provide professional, nonpartisan service to the support of the Texas legislature and legislative agencies. And so it kind of gives them an oversight of what we're doing in just that small little thing. So retaining great people. We have been very lucky that we have been able to retain folks. And we are divided. We have very different sections or silos within our Ledge Council, especially our IT. We have our infrastructure, we have the CSC, which I'm part of, the Computer Support Center, and then and that includes like media and education. We are the frontline people, we are the face of council. Our developers are not the face of council. So when we do desk side support, as well as actual chamber support to our members during the legislative sessions. So due to that, we had to have some really clear and concise guidelines and policies for telecommuting, because many of you who work with the legislature, and I was really, I don't want to say shocked, but I was happy to see that most people are on, that it was either a few, most of us are on site with a few working, or most of us are working on site. That is how we are doing here in Texas, is most of us have had to be on site because we're actually in our fourth session, but we're in our third special session. So clear and concise guidelines for telecommuting. What that means is not every team fits the same mold. So everybody was given like basically their own kind of set work, like what they were required. And with that came the flexible work schedules for people who do NSG, which is our network group. You know, they come in if they have to put, change a switch out or something, but most of their work can be done from home. And then another thing that our leadership did was they gave supervisors or team leads leeway. So for instance, I am a team lead over the office support team. My team supports the House chamber, all the technology for the members in the House chamber. And what we had to do there is I had to say, you all have to come in. You can come in on certain days, but y'all are going to have to come in because we can be there for hours. We were in the chamber till 3:44 a.m. this last Tuesday. So it gives me the leeway with leadership backup because of that strong policies and procedures. to say, this is what is expected of you and this is what you need to do. And we've not had any pushback from that. So that's been great. This is the new strategy that we're using. We started to use it, but, and this is for the client facing teams. So these are our client support teams. We started using this, but then our session started. So what this is you can either work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what that does is that gives you 2 days to work from home, either before the beginning of the week or 2 days to work from home at the end of the week. And then you have your 2 days, your weekends. And so what that does is that is fair for everyone. And then Wednesdays is our team building day. And this has taken the place of, this is when our team meetings happen. Sometimes we have bring cupcake day, but the whole team is together. And one of the things that I have learned from this is I have had to bring people into my team during a pandemic, and being able to build rapport with everyone on the team has been great for the new people coming in. And I've had 2 new people come on during the pandemic, and having a day where everyone is together and having a day to meet and say, what are our trends? Is there anything you're seeing? Is there anything we need to discuss? That really helps solidify your team, and it just builds camaraderie among everybody. And so this is just an idea. I mean, I've seen some people that do, they do Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, and they work from home, the other 3 days, but it's fair. There is, nobody gets more than anybody else. And it just makes Wednesdays a good day for all of us to get together. Another team building thing is, Nate talked a lot about Slack. So we love Slack. We use it quite heavily here in the Ledge Council here in Texas. We use the huddle all the time. You can call someone from your car through Slack and talk to them on your, on your speakers in your car. I mean, it's great. But we have done things for team building options like Slack. One team has what they call their Tiki Bar. It's a private channel where they can post anything they want, and they get a kick out of that. And I can't see what they say, so who knows what they say about me. But anyway, that's that team. Another team has daily scrums. For those of you that have worked with Agile, Scrum still hangs around, but they have daily scrums. They're only 10 to 15 minutes, but that has been great for them. Some have message groups. My team has the OST squad message group, and we send funnies and things back to each other. A lot of teams do offsite outings. I don't know if anybody else has Top Golf, but they go to this place that they can shoot golf balls and eat together, and that's a lot of fun. And the thing with this is that offsite outing is only for those that are comfortable to go. It doesn't mean that everybody has to go, but that's been team building. I've actually done that too. And private DMs, that they've done that. So I thought, just to have some fun, I would show y'all some of the things that my team has shared on our OST squad messages. And I thought these were funny. And so I just thought I would just give y'all a little funny there. Let's see what I have next. Really fast, I want to touch on institutional knowledge. Mentorship is huge for us, especially those of us that are consultants. We mentor everyone that comes on to a consulting team is given a mentor. Sometimes they're given 2. Some mentors have a strength somewhere that others don't have. And I have found that sometimes having 2 mentors per person actually builds everybody up. So mentorship is really important to the CSC. You have to decide what is indispensable. So, you know, a lot of times we all stress out someone's leaving. Oh, there goes all that institutional knowledge. And we have to make sure that we focus on what was their core expertise. What did they really know? And that's maybe the only one thing you need to focus on. Because anybody can probably pick up making a friendship with somebody or being introduced to somebody who it's what is indispensable. And that has been a very big thing that I've had to learn is I've had to say, what do I really need from them to still be able to provide the level of customer service that the clients expect? Or, you know, what do we have to do to keep things running? Because the bottom line is this is all about what do the legislators need to do to get their job done? And what do you facilitate behind the scenes that they have no clue about, but it helps them get their job done? And so you really have to look at what you consider indispensable. And last but not least, this to me is more institutional knowledge, is more sharing your culture of your agency with those that are coming in. And if I had more time, we actually at Ledge Council, everyone who's attended NALIT knows we love to do videos. We're the video, I don't know, anyway, but we actually have, it needs to be updated, but we actually have a video that introduces our agency and introduces not just the IT, but the drafting and the document production and all the other divisions within Ledge Council, but it shows our culture. And so sharing your culture is big, not only for, I mean, it's important for incoming, but to make sure that those that are here, that are within your culture know, that are within your agency, know that you're appreciated. And that is also part of our culture here at Ledge Council. We feel very appreciated. Our director constantly sends us thank yous for all the work that we do. And I know that we can't go and tell our directors, you need to be telling us how great we are, but it is, you as leaders can do that with your own people and at least pass that down to them. And I am finished. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Amber. That was great. Just full disclosure, when we were initially talking about this, putting this webinar together, and I had run into all those places that were telling me to put a video, one of the first things I said to Kay, and I think Nate was on this call as well, was we need to get a hold of Texas. I'm sure they have a video. And sure enough, you do.
We do, and I could play it for y'all. It's 8 minutes long. I have it available if anybody wants to see it.
Well, I think maybe we'll be respectful of people's time, at least out front. If people stick around after class, maybe they can look at it.
Okay, yeah.
So I'd like to see if anybody has any questions out there that's been watching. If you do, if you use the raise hand feature, we'll watch for that. We are running a little late, so I'll understand if we're not overwhelmed by questions. Give that a second. Although I have something in chat here.
Can I put the link to the video in the chat?
Oh.
It's not external. It's on one of our protected drives, so I don't know if that would work.
Nate, is that a hand raised with a question? Go ahead.
It is,
Question
yes.
from a panel.
Yeah, I don't know at all. I know, Jim, you were talking about the this intern program, and you said it was very successful. Can you just take a minute or two and maybe share a little bit more about what that looks like, and how do you, for example, do you have a relationship in place with area community colleges or universities, or just a little bit more context there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it short, respecting everybody's time. I know we're running a little late. But yeah, the short version is that we developed this several years ago, and we reach out to local colleges and universities. We're not for this primary program. We're not partnered with just one school, and we invite anywhere from 1 to 3 interns to come in and do their software developers. We have kind of set an expectation of this is kind of what we're looking for in skill levels. So we tend to get juniors and seniors in college. And then we provide a list of proposed projects. So they will come in and essentially apply to work on a project. We partner them with a mentor developer on our team who's responsible for working with them, getting their environment set up, working on the project. And then they present twice during the, usually it's 8 weeks long, and they present twice during that time frame, kind of halfway through and then at the end to show off their work. Most of the time, we try to provide projects where they can take it from soup to nuts, complete the project, and they're contributing code that we'll push into production eventually. So part of that is actually reviewing it, making sure that it's up to our code quality standards. That's a regular thing we do. But our goal is for them to walk away with hands-on practical experience and be able even to point to some code that's in production at an organization. And since we open source and put all our stuff on GitHub, they can go to an employer someday and say, like, this code here is mine.
That's great. Thank you. I see there's a question from Perry that her group is 7 people and how large our staff and groups are. I can real quickly share. LTSB is statutorily about 43 in size, but we generally employ around 40. We ideally have 43, but sometimes it's tight and difficult to remain fully staffed, obviously. So we're about 43.
On the committee management group, we were able to grow from 9 to 14 now for committee management, customer relations work.
In the Senate in New York, we're about equivalent to where Nate is in Wisconsin. We have about 40 employees. We're down 1 right at the moment, but hopefully to fill that soon.
We're a fairly lean ship out here in Idaho. We've got 5 people that are in network or desktop support, and then we've got a handful of programmers as well.
Okay, so I saw the question. We have 170 in our IT staff. And then I am part of this, the support center, which is 5 consultant teams. We all take care of different things. I take care of member offices, their daily operations. Then we have legislative team, special needs team supports our preservation board, LBB. And so I have 7 on my team. We take care of the 181 and the speaker's office. And then we have our media and education. So the CSC is the client face. Our developers don't interact very often with our clients across the street.
Unfortunately, I cannot answer that question regarding how many total IT at the legislative data center. I can't even say how many are on our 3rd floor, so apologies. I can speak specifically to my team, but first, I haven't seen a whole lot of people in a very long time, but I don't have that information on hand. Apologies.
Carla, there's a lot. I do know that.
But not as many as Texas.
No, actually, I think California has more than Texas.
Oh, really?
I think Florida is another one. I think Texas, Florida, and California are all up there as far as the size of our IT departments.
Everything's bigger in Texas, though. Everything's bigger in Texas from what I hear. So
I know, that's why I look so big on camera.
I don't see any more raised hands, so I'd like to thank the panelists for speaking. NCSL, thanks for making this work for us, getting it all put together. I was going to leave. I'm a numbers guy. I love to dig up numbers and come up with poll results and that kind of stuff. So I was just going to share one thing. Diversity has come up a couple times. In fact, I think each of the panelists at one point or another touched on diversity. And in the 21 pages of notes that I have for my 4 minutes at the beginning of this, this stuck with me when I first read it, and I thought about it. So anyway, I've got a couple. 68% of people believe that diversity in hiring will be a priority for professionals in the next year. 61% of organizations are putting more emphasis on diversity than they did in 2020. And this one really stuck with me. 44% of candidates across the board have turned down an interview or job offer due to lack of diversity in the workplace. And I think this speaks to, I mentioned it earlier, I think a couple other people have touched on this too, that there's a real shift in the workplace, and this is a workers' market. And it's not a negative thing. I mean, workers are enthusiastic. They're making changes because they want to, not because they feel like they're in a really bad situation. So it's a positive market. But we have to pay attention to a lot of things. 44% is a pretty big number. So that just stuck with me throughout this, and I thought I'd mention it here at the end. But again, thanks to everyone. We're late, so unless somebody else has something they want to throw in here at the end, I'm going to wrap this up. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Thanks again, Jennifer.
Hey, no worries. I think that went really well.
I think it did. Really appreciate you jumping in there at the last minute and getting us across the finish line.
Yeah, no, that was wonderful. I'm really happy. Sorry. No, I think it went great and was successful, and I know that we hopefully did Kay proud. So
Yeah. All right. Take care, you guys.
you too.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Soren.
much, Soren.
Bye-bye.
Bye.